Greetings everyone! I have another set of speakers to review for you today. If you follow my channel, you know I've been on quite a speaker kick lately. Did the design build collaboration with another YouTuber. I built the acrylic sub, reviewed speakers, modified speakers. Yeah, quite a bit of speaker talk here on the channel, but I think they are a very important part of the audio chain. Perhaps the most important of the audio reproduction as far as, coloring the sound and all that. But anyhow, another set of speakers. This is from Aima. This is a new product. I'm not sure at the time of releasing this video if they're actually out on the market. I checked earlier and they don't show up on their website yet. One thing about these companies, they do send out product and kind of get feedback from reviewers because they might want to change things. I know Fosi Audio does that quite a bit. So perhaps Aima is the same way. But anyhow, let's get into it. So this is the P600 passive speaker from Aima. It's bookshelf sized. Fairly large though, with a 6.5-inch woofer. And we have kind of this horn waveguide design, 1-inch tweeter. Now these do not come with grills, and that's one thing with modern speakers. They're really working on appearance here to make a nice looking speaker. Why cover it up with a grill? But at least the tweeter is protected. And we have a 6.5-inch bass driver here. The surround has kind of like a corrugation to it. Maybe it's to do something with compliance or extra throw. Looking closer here, we have polycone, and it seems to have decent throw. Have this phase plug design. Of course, this is not a full range speaker having the tweeter there, so this is probably more ornamental than anything, but it does look pretty nice. And you notice they're going with the fastenerless design. You don't see any screws or anything, probably hidden under this ring here. The cabinets have a pretty heavy wood grain look to them. Of course, it's vinyl veneer. I do hope they come out in a walnut color. While black still might be the most popular, kind of tired of that. I mean, it's been the thing since the late 80s. So I'm hoping that I see more natural wood grain or other colors. I see some speaker brands coming out with white speakers. So yeah, hopefully they do offer these in maybe like a walnut color. I think that would make the driver stand out even more. Coming around the side here, you can see that heavy wood grain texture. And notice that the front baffle is angled back a little bit. Aima did that same design with their powered S700 speakers as well that I reviewed a few months ago. Heading around back here, we have a pretty decent size flared bass port. And I really like this. Look at these terminals. Some of the nicest I've seen in such a speaker. Now that's not plastic, that's aluminum plate. So yeah, that is a really nice looking binding post setup they have here. And here's some of the specifications. They are calling these things 89 dB at 1 meter at 2.83 volts. Impedance 4 ohms. Well, that sensitivity seems kind of high for this size of speaker, but you have to remember that is 4 ohms, so at 2.83 volts, you're actually putting 2 watts into these speakers. So at 1 watt, they would actually be more in line at around 86 dB, which makes more sense, and the claimed frequency range. On the bottom, they do include stick-on feet that you put on yourself. And they're not that hard rubber. You can see they do kind of squish down, so they will absorb some vibrations. All in all, the fit and finish seem pretty good with these speakers. I don't really notice any flaws. But fit and finish is one thing. How do they sound? Well, I'm going to turn off the camera and listen to them for a while, make comparisons, and I'll come back. Well, I did give them a good listen for a while. Most of the afternoon, really, but I forgot. I got to open them up and see what's going on the inside. Okay, let's see if we can see anything in there. They do have the foam on the wires, so if the wire is laying against something inside there, it doesn't buzz at certain frequencies. That is a 6-element crossover. There's 2 capacitors, 2 coils, and 2 resistors. So it does seem like they were trying to tune these. I don't see any film capacitor. Even at this price point, you usually see a film capacitor in the tweeter circuit. The woofer cap is usually kind of a large value. It'd be pretty expensive. There's the back of the woofer magnet. Aima branded. Decent sized magnet, but I can't really see too much. I don't feel any bracing up in there, and the stuffing it's kind of a token gesture. It's not really a lot of stuffing in there. To make a difference, you really have to stuff these with a good quality stuffing material, an absorbent, sound absorbent stuffing material. Anyway, let's continue. So I gave these things a listen for a couple hours with different genres of music, and I took some notes of my findings. When I set up a set of speakers and listen to them, don't really want anything to stand out. I just want them to have a good balanced sound. And well, these didn't quite do that. The thing that stood out mostly to me was the treble. These things are extremely bright. Now these Fosis, when I tested them, I found them to be pretty bright as well. They're about 3 dB hot in the treble before I modified the crossover. Well, these things are probably 5 or 6 dB hot. Just quite a lot. And that can be very fatiguing to listen to. Some people might like that, but yeah, it's just too much. It's like the treble control on the amplifier is cranked all the way up. It's just way too hot for me. Mid bass sounded decent, maybe a bit hollow. It could be the lack of stuffing. I noticed some sound comes out through the port that isn't just bass, so yeah, really stuffing these can help that. Mids seem okay, but it's really hard to tell when you're getting blasted so much with treble. You know, if I modified the crossover and brought that treble down, I could reevaluate the speaker and see what else is wrong. And they might be okay then, but yeah, like I say, it's kind of hard to tell with the treble up so much. They do pretty well with bass. You get decent low bass. I'm not talking theatrically low bass, but for most music, these are pretty good. You may not even need a subwoofer. However, one thing I noticed is the bass notes are not really pure. There seems to be some distortion in the bass, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Imaging. What I like to do is, with the speakers spaced apart, set back about the same distance they are apart, play some true monaural audio, and listen. Does it sound like the image is coming from between the speakers? And that's a sign of good imaging if they are, but with these speakers, I wasn't getting that. I was kind of getting a smeared soundstage here. And that's probably, again, due to the tweeters being so bright. I think if those were toned down, it would help with the imaging. After the listening test, I did a comparison test. I brought out the Fosi audio and set them next to each other and just see how they sound. Keep in mind that this speaker costs more. It's a $400 speaker. You might be able to find a discount on it, while these are supposed to be around $300. And most importantly, these have been modified. I added an internal brace. I added plenty more stuffing inside. And I also modified the crossover to bring the tweeter down 3 dB. I thought these were a little bit hot, and bringing them down kind of even things out. So this is actually a pretty good sounding speaker now. You could really tell the difference with the highs between these two speakers. These things were just shouting at you, and these sound more neutral. The next thing I tested was bass. I used a sound meter and played different frequencies and compared the outputs. I actually tested in another part of the house, well, standing far away, so any harmonics or anything from the speakers wouldn't interfere with my measurement. But at 30 hertz, neither of the speakers were making very much output, but the Fosi was still 2 decibels louder. At 32.5 dB, thanks to room gain, the speakers were both starting to put out some noticeable bass, but the Fosi was 3 dB louder. From 35 to 37.5 hertz, the Fosi was 4 dB louder. And from 40 all the way to 50, where I stopped measuring, the Fosi was about 2.5 dB louder. So this is a lot more impressive as far as the bass goes. Another thing I noticed, that this is cleaner with the bass, and I'll see if I can set up a little demonstration here. Okay, I set up a little demo here. I have a switch. I can switch back and forth between speakers. And listen to the difference. I'm playing a 37.5 hertz tone, and this camera may not be able to pick up the fundamental, but you can kind of hear an overtone and maybe also a little bit of a rattle. Hear that overtone in the bass? When I switch to the Fosi, it's a much purer tone. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's a much more pure tone, and it's also a little bit louder. It's putting out more bass. So I'll switch back. Yeah, less bass, but there's that overtone. And also kind of a rattle. I think it's coming from the front. Yeah, much better. Yeah, so that vibration I'm hearing, I think it's just an air leak around here. It's the same on both woofers, so it's not a defect. I think there might be a little air pumping through this space between this phase plug thingy here. But yeah, a little bit of rattle. And when you're playing bass music, you can hear the difference. You can hear that overtone in some of the more bassy music, some of that electronic type bass music. I'm pretty impressed with these Fosis after doing the modification. I love to get a set of the Polk Audio ES20s and compare them. This may not be able to beat them, but I bet it would give them a run for the money. But these, I don't know if I'll modify them, especially with that buzzy leak sound. But I do see potential with them. If they can take care of some of those issues, I think they can be decent speakers. Okay, it's time to give a rating to these things. What is it going to be? Ooh. Yeah, no. That's about 2.5 stars out of 5. I think these do need some work, but like I say, they have potential. I'm just more impressed with the Fosis, especially after I did the modifications. Certainly, if I modify these things, they'd be a lot better. And hopefully Aiyima sees this and maybe thinks about doing some modifications themselves. If not, bringing the tweeter down so that they're even. You know, some people might like a little bit of brightness to them. Maybe just bring the treble down 3 dB so they're still a little bit on the bright side, but they're much more palatable. And see if they can fix some of the other issues with the bass. Maybe See if they can get rid of that distortion. Perhaps adding a decent amount of stuffing will clear that up. I don't know. So there you go. That's my review of the Aiyima P600 bookshelf speakers. Thank you for watching.